Hello all, welcome to study 60 of the Solving Studies to Improve Chess Calculation series. This study is from Nikolai Dmitrievich Grigoriev. Well, he was considered the best in endgame studies. At his time, he was also a strong player. He played against Botvinnik and Alekhine, for example. He even had a match with Alekhine, so he was considered on the top of the Russian chess. But all players considered him the world champion of pawn endgames. He was the best in pawn endgames composition at his time. He later inspired many chess composers, including Mikhail Zina. In fact, I have a study that in a previous one from Mikhail Zinar that is inspired in this precise study composition. There's a tip over here, okay? But let's try to solve this one. Again, if you haven't, I suggest you watch the guide so you can extract the best from the practice, and the countdown will start, and I catch you back with the solution. And here we are, and let's start with the first only right move to win. It's d4. Of course, needs to be d4. If we started with e4, well, then can simply control our pawn. Let's say, for example, I go with d4. Now the king is controlling the advancing, and after, well, black will have 3 pawns to choose. Anyone can go there and be promoted and win this one. So we need to start with d4. Of course, black can't go here to a pawn race. Let's see, for example, if it goes with the a pawn. Why? Because the d pawn, it's even more important than the e pawn because it promotes with check. So after the pawn race finishes, white is able to promote, and as you can see, it's check. So the queen now has time to grab all the other pawns. So coming back here, the king needs to approach because the king wants to control from f6, so to cut white king from supporting the pawn promotions. The king needs to come and cut the king on e7. Let's see what happens. Let's say, for example, if I go with d5, which is a mistake. Well, then the king goes to f6. I don't see here, but okay, let's do it like this. Now it's white to play. Of course, the pawn can't advance because otherwise I will grab it just by bringing the king. Notice that black can advance any pawn at any time. So the king tries to approach, but now I go with the h pawn. This is key, okay? Go with the h pawn. Of course, the king can now we are threatening to promote our pawn, but of course the king comes back, so attacking the pawn. Uh, the pawn promotes the pawn, but now h4 can advance. And if also white advances the pawn, well, we can take it. So white is forced to waste another tempo. And this is enough to a win for black because in the end, of course, white will also promote. But after this check, simply grab the queen and then we are going to promote the other pawn. This one is controlled and it's an easy win for black. So here, of course, we need to avoid black king to come to f6. So the king needs also to approach. So goes to f5. Now we advance the pawn, forcing the king to come. Otherwise, we are going to promote it really fast. Uh, White is forced to protect the pawn, of course. We are now in a situation that the king can't take the d pawn, neither the e pawn, otherwise the other runs away. And now, whatever black does, whatever pawn it chooses, it's going to be a defeat. Let's see, for example, let's start with b pawn. Let's go to b5. Well, first we need to guarantee the advance of our pawn. So this move is basically forced, but it's enough because we are going to promote first, and this is going to be key. Let's see what happens after the promotion. So both players promote, but now white has a simple maneuver, checking the king on d6. The king is forced to take the pawn. There is no other possibility, and now queen g6, the king moves away and we grab the queen, then the other pawns. It's interesting because if we go with h pawn again we need to play king e7. Now we are able to promote also, and the same goes now, but just for the other side. So instead of going g6, here I go c6. The king moves away, of course, and then I grab the queen. And last but not the least, of course, we have the H pawn, A pawn. Well, we do the same, king e7, and now the pawn advance. We are going to get there first, of course, and when the pawn promotes, I have another check, the king takes our pawn, and it's game over. So the funny part is whatever the pawn is to move, whatever black has chosen, we are able to grab it in the end. Uh, if you notice now, you can go back to the Mikhail Zinar study I mentioned as a tip on the beginning, and you are going to see that he got inspired by this to the other study, which is also interesting because not only the chess composers uh, are inspired from the previous chess studies, as we as players practicing to improve our calculation can benefit a lot from solving studies because many times the ideas will show up, and of course normally during the games the positions are not so complex, which make it easier to apply these principles we are going to be more familiar with by solving studies. See you again in future studies. Bye bye.